You're listening to the number one source for political, pop culture, and sports talk on the radio. The Julio Rivera Show. Hashtag Conservarican. With no fuck left to give.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3, hit it!
We are controlling transmission.
Ladies and gentlemen,
The Julio Rivera Show is on.
And popping. My name is Julio Rivera, your host this evening for the Julio Rivera Show, hashtag Conservarican, for this Thursday, July 28th, 2016. Probably smack dab, this show's going to run against Hillary Clinton's speech. If you don't want to be put to sleep and lied to, listen to my show instead. How you guys doing tonight? I know I've had a rough day. I was called out again on the second consecutive, pairing of Brittany Pounders and Julio Rivera on Ed Berliner's show, The Hardline. Again, making a personal attack. What is the need that people, does this make people feel better about not voting for a Republican in the fall and allowing in there, because that's basically what they're doing. They're allowing Hillary Clinton to win the presidency because they don't want to come together as a party here. So is the thing now that you're just going to attack the conservatives that want Trump to win? Like, anybody that's been listening to my show since I was on We Are America Radio, I started doing a show last year in November. From November all the way until 11 days ago, I was a staunch supporter of Senator Ted Cruz. Unwavering. Traveled to several states, phone banked, knocked on doors, did everything I could to bring awareness. But you know what? Senator Cruz lost. There was an element within the party which unfortunately decided that it would be a good idea to try wrangling through the rules, through some sort of what I honestly consider dishonest. It is stealing in a sense for delegates to, or to try to free up delegates to vote for a candidate that had about half of what the winner did. I don't see that as a viable path to victory in the fall, because you're basically choosing someone who had half as many votes as the person who won it. I'm a little bit worked up and a little bit ticked off because, again, this is day 11 of Julio on the Trump train. And again, it was another day full of abuse, personal attacks, and I'm willing to shoulder that and fight through it and try to reach each and every one of those people that takes it upon themselves to block me, or not to block me, to attack me. I'm not blocking them. I want to try to get them to see things the correct way, which is that Donald Trump is the only thing that can help reverse the damage of the last 7 years. We've been fighting as activists to try to have a change in America, in our country, and we're going to let it go right down the tubes here if we don't unite as a party. And we have a spectacular show tonight. I can't even understate the excitement at this point of the quality of guests that we have this evening. We're going to have the author of Bleeding Heart Conservatives, Why It's Good to Be Right, Allison Choi, will be joining us this evening, and we're very excited about her. Very interesting book. I haven't had the opportunity to read the entire thing, but I certainly look forward to doing so. It's going to be a great show. We also have author also of a very, very interesting book, and actually I want to let him explain all about it because I haven't had the opportunity to read it also, but it's called The Case Against Welfare. He's a staunch fiscal conservative, and his name is Dr. Jerome Huyler. He will be here as well, and we're going to learn all about his book. We also have a conservative political consultant by the name of Noel Fritsch, and you guys can keep it going for him. And we're going to discuss actually some very interesting tidbits involving from what I was made to understand, Axiom strategies and some things that went on in a congressional campaign, and that's of particular interest. But my first guest is a very special person to me personally. He's someone that kind of set the Conservarican train in motion back last year in advance of CPAC. He did a really great write-up of me going to CPAC for the very first time. He is the founder of a internet political revolution known as RedNationRising. It's grassroots digital activism, and it sets the gold standard for it. He's a good friend of mine. We've gotten close over the last year and a half, and I'm so proud to bring him on. My buddy, James Lysaght. How are you this evening, sir?
I'm doing great, Julio. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me on. It sounds terrific tonight, and I certainly know what you're going through with getting attacked for, waking up to the reality that unless Donald Trump wins, the next president will be Hillary Clinton, and that we need to stop her any way and every way, or I think that we lose our constitutional republic. We certainly lose the Supreme Court. But the hate that's still out there, it doesn't make any sense to me. I think it's just time to kind of put it in the rearview mirror. And, as much as I like the other candidates, I am 100% behind Donald Trump. There's just no other option.
Exactly. And that's the thing that's killing me, to see good, reasonable, or people that I thought for a long time were good, reasonable conservatives take this sort of an attitude. And it's all this pseudo-intellectual stuff. They're like, oh, he's a Soros puppet because there's, I read something on some, random blog that said he was, or this or that. Listen, I've been watching, I'm from New Jersey. So I've been familiar with Donald Trump, before The Apprentice, before all this other stuff. And yeah, did I attack him on social media previously? Of course I did. Because I'm a bulldog, and I wanted Ted Cruz to win. But I never for 1 second ever represented myself as someone who would not vote for the nominee. This is classic, cutting your nose to spite your face. And really, the disappointment is going to occur if on election night, all these so-called principled conservatives don't come out and do the right thing down the road. I mean, do you really think you're going to get 2020 if you don't get 2016? I mean, I think that illegals will be voting by 2020. Don't you agree if Hillary Clinton wins?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think that's clear. And I think this is really it. It's 2016. As much as, I loved Ted Cruz, and I still do, he's not the candidate. And that's it, period. Full stop, end of story. Ted Cruz is not the candidate. Donald Trump is.
Exactly.
And they will do everything that they can to grant amnesty and allow illegal aliens to vote. And that's it. What does Ann Coulter say? Adios, America.
Mm-hmm, exactly, and it makes perfect sense. Now, you are the founder of something very special to me personally, RedNationRising, which was the first opportunity that I ever had really to delve into political activism, over the last couple of years. The first, notable sort of things that I ever did, and I still do because I still wave the flag hard for RedNationRising, was as a contributor to the wonderful things that as a group of activists we all contribute. Let me ask you a question, or not ask you a question, but let you describe in your own words what RedNationRising is, how it began, and how it's revolutionizing digital activism.
Sure, thank you. RedNationRising started from one single tweet 4 days after Obama was reelected in 2012. I wasn't particularly knowledgeable. I didn't look at myself as an activist. I didn't know what the term grassroots meant. I had no clue what a rhino was. I got, sort of interested in sometime around mid-2012 in what was going on. It was just impossible to ignore what was happening in America. And I just started to delve in a little bit in mid-2012. I had built up a Twitter account with a nice following, And I didn't really have any plan, but 4 days after the 2012 election, there was a lot of talk about revolution and secession and insurrection, bloody people and broken stuff on the home front domestically. And it really put the fear of God into me. And I thought that with maybe an effective strategy on messaging, something that was bold and aggressive, I could make a little bit of a difference and an impact. And the hashtag RedNationRising just sort of came to me on a Saturday morning while my wife and kids were sitting around the living room. And I knew the power of a hashtag back then. A lot of people might want to belittle the power of the hashtag, but I think most of them are sort of traditional or legacy media types who are a little scared of the immense power and effect that Twitter has. It's a very powerful tool, as is Facebook. But I saw that, you could build something around a hashtag, and I wrote a tweet with the hashtag in it. Immediately got 2 retweets. The first retweet was from an 18-year-old young guy, a younger conservative in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, where the DNC is now holding their convention. The other one was a woman with a horse farm in Florida. And those initial retweets on something that really wasn't planned was spontaneous, and that led to a series of tweets on my behalf. On that first day, people started to use the RedNationRising hashtag themselves, which was a trip because, you create a hashtag. Everybody who's on Twitter imagines creating a hashtag that other people use or adopt or something. Mm-hmm. And I was really encouraged that people started to use it. I never imagined how influential and how big it would become to the point where it's so far beyond a hashtag. I'll get to that in a second. But, 3 weeks after that first tweet, the hashtag RedNationRising was the #1 trend in the world. Within a couple months after that, there was now a Facebook page and a main Twitter account. A couple of years after that, we're making a lot of impact, not just on social media, but at events where people connect with each other, and there's sort of ad hoc RedNationRising members and contributors who meet each other. For example, CPAC, which you referenced earlier. Mm-hmm. And then I think probably one of the most amazing things that I've ever seen was when we extended to our state accounts and the RedNationRising state accounts. Mm-hmm. And each RedNationRising state account is very special and unique in its own right. They all have power and influence on a local level as well as on national things. And the overall collective effect of it just on Twitter alone is phenomenal, and the numbers are outrageous. I think that since that very first tweet, RedNationRising has made north of 25 billion impressions, just a hashtag now on Twitter. This month, RedNationRising will make 1.5 billion Twitter impressions. That's not just from me or the state accounts or the main account. Certainly they're influential in that. But RedNationRising reaches over 10 million Twitter accounts every day through really a loose confederation, a network of people who consider themselves members. There's nearly 5,000 to 10,000 tweets per day on it. So it's really truly an internet phenomenon which has transitioned into a serious national organization. As you know, a couple of weeks ago on the 4th of July, Independence Day, RedNationRising Radio Network launched with 57 internet radio shows that are also on terrestrial radio. I really can't believe how talented, how competent, how influential the radio shows are. It's surreal to listen to very influential voices talk about the RedNationRising Radio Network. We probably have the best lineup during the day. It's just something where, my dad, I grew up in New York, and I was accustomed to, talk radio giants, the home of Howard Stern and things like that. Mm-hmm. And I hear these voices on the RedNationRising Radio Network, and they are as good as what I heard 20, 30 years ago in New York talk radio. And that's saying an awful lot. And there's just so many talented people there. It's the type of thing where, I think my dad, when he goes to RedNationRising.us and listens to the show streaming, I think he learned something new. He's able to connect in a different way with Red Nation Rising, and that's true universally. For our state accounts and for the people who are managing things that way, and it's also true for the average person who maybe just uses Red Nation Rising in an average tweet, who doesn't know the story behind it, who doesn't know this exponential growth. And it's probably fair to say that right now, Red Nation Rising is the most influential grassroots group probably in the country, certainly across Twitter and digital media. Without any, we're entirely grassroots. So, as the organization gets tighter and as people who have experience in organizations contribute and help to administer what we're doing, we're just going to grow and become more and more influential. We have, as you know, some terrific credibility on with the Republicans and the Trump campaign. Just over this past weekend, and I was a big Ted Cruz supporter. I mean, it's a true story that in early 2013, I was putting out tweets talking about Ted Cruz for president probably before 99% of the country had ever heard of the guy. But when he withdrew after Indiana, it was a crystallized moment for me that you had to get behind Trump. But in any event, this past weekend, thank you. You attended on behalf of Red Nation Rising.
Yes, and it was wonderful. It was a great time. Yeah.
And it was a cocktail party thrown by the Republican National Committee, and Chairman Reince Priebus was there, and it was also co-hosted by the Trump campaign, and Trump's campaign chair, Paul Manafort, was there. And, you really represented us terrifically there. And I sat here in Chicago. I've left New York, and I'm in the Midwest and very happy out here. But, I sat here and I wasn't able to make it to Philadelphia. You were. And I just thought how amazing that someone is shaking hands with two of the most important, influential people shaping the direction of this country, the best country that has ever existed on planet Earth, with the smartest, sharpest, fittest humans which have ever existed. And Red Nation Rising is talking to these people, and it's all quite humbling, but it's all about ethos and not egos. It's it's not the Jim story. It really is about every single contributor. It just would not exist if it wasn't for that 18-year-old in Philadelphia and that horse farmer down in Florida who gave those initial retweets. And, we've consolidated things quite well. We try to stay positive as possible. There's a lot of negative things happening, and it's right to be concerned. But I feel that the difference that we've made has been enormous. And, we reach people who have influence. And so maybe they go to a meeting in a state or a town and they talk about Red Nation Rising, and it makes a good positive impact because, I'll never forget how I felt the night that Obama was reelected. And I don't think that anyone should forget that. And I think what we really need to charge full steam ahead in the next 4 months, 3.5 months, to elect Donald Trump, or it's going to be bloody people, broken stuff, I think. And, that has to be suppressed. And I think just with pushing a positive message, the unity message, Red Nation Rising is a very large tent, big tent. We've got people with a lot of views all over the place, but I encourage that, and people really need to get involved.
All right. Well, James, you're the man. It was great to talk to you. I can't wait to talk to you again. You're going to be a regular contributor to the show because I like getting and people need to know exactly how something as simple as just being at home, bringing awareness while you're at your computer. Maybe you share an article that has information that will blow someone else's mind. I mean, so many people have become, as I like to call it, QWERTY activism in a sense. because we're doing it on our keyboards, our QWERTY keyboards. And it really makes a difference because I feel that in 2008 was the first election that was decided primarily by internet participation. Facebook was a new medium or a newer medium, and I think it helped Obama get elected. And now conservatives have caught up, and it's time for us to finally win the big one and do it behind grassroots activism, whether it's you're out on the ground or whether you do it from home from your computer or your phone. Thank you so much for joining us. On the other side of the break, we have Jerome Huyler. Don't go anywhere.
You're listening to the #1 source for political, pop culture, and sports talk on the radio. The Julio Rivera Show. #Conservarican. With no fuck left to give.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3, hit it!
We are controlling transmission.
Ladies and gentlemen,
The Julio Rivera Show is on.
And popping. You just heard RedNationRising founder James Lysaght. And yes, I did want to talk about this a little bit, and maybe we can get into it a little bit later as we're waiting for Dr. Huyler to give us a call here. I believe we had him and he dropped. Yes, I went to RNC at the DNC, which was a kickoff party for the Republican answer to the Philadelphia DNC convention, which is going on right now. Hillary Clinton is probably giving her speech right now, but actually we're going to cut away from that because we do have Dr. Huyler on the line. How are you today, sir?
I am doing fine.
All right, fantastic. I gave our listeners the name of your book as we were beginning the show, but I want you to explain it in your own words. Give us the title, tell us the synopsis. What is this book about, sir?
Okay, the name of the book, as you said, is Everything You Have, subtitled The Case Against Welfare. The title of the book was inspired by a statement made in 1976 by President Gerald Ford in a debate with Jimmy Carter, where he said, "A government that is big enough to give you anything you want is big enough to take everything you have." The theme of the book is to say that it is not only our prosperity that we are forfeiting in the scramble for almost universal public assistance, but our liberties as well. And we have certainly seen that through the last nearly 8 years of the Obama administration. Now, the very important for me to explain to your audience that when I speak of welfare, I am not just speaking of the typical anti-poverty programs, or not even Social Security or Medicare. I use the term welfare to designate any public policy or program that doesn't protect us all in the enjoyment of what's ours, but benefits some at others' expense. So welfare, in my way of thinking of it, includes pork, bacon, earmarks, member items, constituent services, farm subsidies, protective tariffs, business bailouts of all descriptions, pay-to-play, too big to fail, and the growing gaggle of entitlements that are consuming so much of the federal budget. If you think of it like this, if you divide everything government can do into one of two basic categories, government can act as a protector, in which it protects us all in the enjoyment of what's ours, our lives, our liberties, our possessions, or government can act as not a protector, but a provider, again, providing benefits to some, ultimately at others' expense. Government today, as a protector, is only barely moonlighting. Over 80% of the federal budget is basically public transfers of wealth from the taxpayers of the country to anyone who is standing in line for all of the benefits government is able to provide.
Okay, let me ask you a question, right? Because I did a show back in December when they passed a horrible omnibus bill, which supposedly when we took control of the House and the Senate both combined in 2000, when we took the Senate rather in 2014 and we had both chambers, we were supposed to be able to prevent this type of egregious spending, which we obviously didn't. We came up with a $1.1 trillion omnibus bill. What if you eliminated all the pork, the earmarks, whatever you want to call it, and we really got towards having a conservative, a non-wasteful government? What do you think, and this is just throw me an estimate, what would really truly be the size of the yearly federal budget?
Okay, right now the federal budget is in the vicinity of $3.5 trillion. 80% of that $3.5 trillion consists in basically transfer payments from taxpayers to other Americans, other groups. It's everything the establishment is looking to receive. All of the lobbyists, all of the lawyers, all of the special interest organizations. And so you take 80% of a $3.5 trillion deficit, take that 80% away. 20% of it is what the budget would be. Julio, can you do the arithmetic quickly? I don't have a pen in front of me.
Well, you're talking, if you said 80% of the $3.2 trillion is a waste, right? You're saying we're throwing away 80% of $3.2 trillion. Is that exactly what you said?
That's correct. A $3.5 trillion. The budget
is 3.5. Wow.
That is what the federal government is spending. And
so really $700 billion is all that we would legitimately need to spend. $700 billion.
Oh, that's exactly right. That is a good figure, because if you look at any year's budget, you will see that national defense, which is the main way in which the government protects us in the enjoyment of our liberties and our property, $680 billion is what is consumed by the entire national defense budget.
Wow.
All of the armed forces and everything. A little over that would go for the federal criminal justice system, all of the jails, all of the judges, the federal penitentiaries, the FBI, which is necessary to protect our liberties and our property, and it all comes out to roughly 20% of the $3.5 trillion, and we would be just as safe. I believe, with Donald Trump, in fact, that we do need to spend a little more to shore up our national defense, especially after 8 years of Barack Obama. But that is just marginal.
Let me ask you a question, though, actually. Basically, because you just brought up Donald Trump, one of the big, talking points that he's been pushing on the campaign trail is that we need to eliminate waste and fraud. Waste and fraud, based on the figures that you're giving me, is the dominant portion of government spending. So you're saying
I don't think so. When he says waste and fraud, duplication of programs, cut out the fat. No, I'm talking about including all of the housing programs, all of the subsidies to ethanol subsidies to farmers, all of the billions of dollars American farmers get not to produce crops, not to plant. The housing subsidies, the subsidies for the cylinders of the world. In other words, there is an enormous amount of money that is simply a transfer payment that is being taken from the taxpayers in order to pay off basically what Donald Trump calls the establishment, Bernie Sanders calls the privileged millionaires and billionaires, and Ted Cruz correctly labeled as the Washington cartel. So it would involve eliminating the Department of Agriculture, which is just a clientele agency to benefit farmers at the expense of taxpayers. Same thing with the Department of Commerce, crony capitalism. Same thing with the Department of Labor, the Department of Education. In other words, if my plan was to be adopted, it would be a wholesale cutting of the size of the federal government. Or like I like to say, I have an idea. Why don't we let conservatism do to D.C. what liberalism did to Detroit?
Aha. You know what? That sounds like a campaign slogan. So when are we going to see Jerome Huyler, Ph.D., running for public office?
Well, never is the answer. Because what will save a country is not any particular politicians campaigning or promising this and that, but individuals like myself promoting ideas. Ideas raise up civilizations or bring down civilization. And the only thing we need to reverse the horrible ideas, namely of socialism, that began a long time ago in this country, is a better idea to make government a protector, not a provider. And campaign season after campaign season, elect people, beginning at the local level, who then go up to state level and federal level, and go to Washington for the purpose of cutting the size of government and freeing the American people from the awful burden of taxes and regulations, regulatory costs for complying with an enormous volume of regulations, and make government basically what our founders meant for it to be, a protector, not a provider. Incidentally, your audience would be interested to hear when we began this march to socialism. Through my research, I've very simply traced the origins of the American welfare state back to the second bill signed into law by our first president. That's where it begins. It was the Tariff Act of 1789. Now, of course, the Constitution authorizes Congress to enact tariffs or other taxes in order to pay for the expense of government. But that 1789 bill also authorized Congress, quote, to encourage domestic manufacturers. Washington signed the bill, and we began putting tariffs, the very kind of tariffs that Donald Trump is advocating, on foreign goods coming to this country. Now, that is not a immediate direct transfer of wealth, but by virtue of the tariff bill, it benefited domestic manufacturers. But any farmer in the West, any plantation owner in the South, had to pay artificially higher prices because domestic manufacturers could raise their prices based on the fact that they had less competition because of the tariffs placed on goods coming from foreign countries. So the domestic manufacturers who clamored, this is where the establishment comes to town in America. The manufacturers clamored, begged, pleaded with Congress for these higher tariffs so they can make more profits by raising their prices and getting away with it. But if you were a farmer or a planter, you had to pay artificially, politically mandated higher prices for your tools, for your weapons, for utensils, every manufactured good you bought. If you were a seaport merchant, your ships were lying idle at their wharfs in Philadelphia, in New York, in Massachusetts, because if we weren't purchasing the goods from Europe, we weren't giving them the resources to buy our agricultural products. If you were a merchant mariner making your living in the maritime trades, you were unemployed. You were out of work because of the crash of international trade across the transatlantic ocean. And that's where it begins. How did we get from that early point to today? Logic. Once a nation decides that some of its citizens have a right not to go out and get, but to lobby Congress and be given, that nation finds itself torn by two questions. Well, who else should be given, and how much should they all get? There's only one answer: politics.
Wow.
And as I say, the establishment comes to town. and this is the origins of all of the corruption we see today, which created a circumstance where 7 of the most wealthy counties in our country surround Washington, D.C. Northern Virginia, Southern Maryland. It's the political class, the establishment, living in the lap of luxury
in their
while
little
the rest
bubble.
of
Yep.
the country languishes.
Wow. Now, to tell people where they can get the book and where they can reach you, your social media, let them all know how they can find you.
Okay, my Twitter handle is at HUYLERJE. I'm on Facebook, Jerome Huyler. I have many posts, which the last post I put down is how to cut federal spending 75% without cutting any essential services. And that's how I explain that all of the welfare, all of the benefits to every class of Americans that's taking place is not only undermining our prosperity, causing taxes to be raised as much as it is, budget deficits, the huge amount of borrowing government has to do to the tune of $220 billion a year just to pay the annual interest charges. So that is on Facebook and Amazon or Barnes & Noble, any of the online sites. You can purchase everything you have, the case against welfare.
All right, fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us. I want everybody to go out and check out that book and go learn something. On the other side of the break, we will have Noel Fritsch. Thank you, and don't go anywhere.
You're listening to the number one source for political, pop culture, and sports talk on the radio. The Julio Rivera Show. Hashtag Conservarican. With no fuck left to give.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3, hit it!
We are controlling transmission.
Ladies and gentlemen,
The Julio Rivera Show is on.
And popping. Listen, I was starting to get into this because I thought we had lost Jerome and then we got him back and then whatever. So anyway, Sunday, and James had referred to this earlier, I did actually attend the launch for the RNC at the DNC. It was a spectacular party. It was really nice to have an opportunity to, rub elbows with those guys and kind of speak to them as far as what some of my concerns were, and they were more than receptive to listening to them. I think it's time, and this is something I had it was a great segment. Actually, I think it was a great segment. But after the segment today was really where there was a really nasty backlash, and this has become, and I'm just going to say it right now, it's a cult-like movement. I don't want to hear about this. I'm staying home. I can't vote for him. Blah, blah, blah. Nobody, as Brittany Pounders, if you go check out her page, nobody attacked Donald Trump more than I did. And I stand by the fact that that's what I did at the time. Because I was trying to help Senator Ted Cruz win the primary. And I am a bulldog, and that's what I do. Okay? But I never said, ever, and I don't think any of us could not vote for the nominee. That is ridiculous, and that has to end now. I ranted about this at the end of last week. This is now day 11 of Conservarican on the Trump train. I've lost about 300 followers. I've gotten at least about 70 or 80 people sending me nasty messages. Some of them turned into like physical threats. That I'm going to kick your ass if I ever see you, in nonsense. I've never seen such ugliness before. Are we the liberals now? Is this what we do to each other? I used to bust balls at Trump fans. I used to bust balls at Rubio, Marco Mentum lovers, and this. The Kasich people, I don't even know who they were. Because I don't think I ever met a person online that was actually a John Kasich supporter. I mean, I think that was just all cooked up and made up. I don't know. I honestly don't know who they are. And people were like, oh, well, Kasich didn't show solidarity by not showing up at the art. Who cares? I didn't like Kasich. I never had any. I was like, why is this guy one of the 7,000 people running for president? I mean, I swear to God. I mean, I'm probably the only Republican that didn't form an exploratory committee this primary season. It was ridiculous. But really, people, we have to move past this. This is going to haunt you. Maybe not election night. Maybe not the first 100 days. But when Antonin Scalia's appointment is made, the replacement is made. When 2 or 3 of the other geriatric Supreme Court justices either retire or drop dead, and they're being replaced by uber liberals appointed by Hillary Clinton to serve their 20, 30, 40-year terms, then you're going to be like, well, we should have held our nose. It's sickening. Let it go. Grow up. I mean, I really don't know what else to say. It's common sense. I mean, we have finally the opportunity to get out of the Obama administration, land on our feet with a Republican Senate and a Republican House of Representatives, and actually roll back the progressive machine. It's not going to be perfect. You know, and I'll tell you a little secret. Donald Trump was obviously not my first choice. He wasn't my second choice, but he actually was my third choice. Just for the simple fact that after seeing the way that Congress behaved, after taking the Senate chamber, that we could still pass a spending bill as disgustingly huge as the omnibus, with Republicans in control. The fact that we can go ahead and get away with that, to me, was just at that point, I was just like, you know what? Maybe we do need an outsider. Ted Cruz obviously was the natural outsider that was an insider because he was in Senate, but he wasn't a career politician or the typical career politician, although he was a consultant and he was an attorney and he was Solicitor General. He was part of the system and he was very inspirational, and we thought that we should have had him. But you know what? Tough fucking shit. It's over. Get past it. Move on. Because the end result is going to be far inferior. I don't know where Noel Fritsch is. Maybe he heard the first couple of segments and decided he didn't want to be on the show. But we'll certainly cut to him as soon as he gets on. In the interim, I actually want to play a commercial for a very important organization by the name of Warrior Angels Foundation. What they do is they are involved in research and treatment for traumatic brain injury. They're helping veterans. Veterans are committing suicide at a rate of 22 a day. The VA, as we all know under President Obama, has turned their back on our heroes. I want you all to log on to www.waftbi.org and find out more. And here's a commercial for Warrior Angels Foundation.
Hi, I'm Adam Marr, Apache helicopter pilot and COO of the Warrior Angels Foundation, a 501c3 with a superior treatment for our veterans suffering with TBI and PTS. We have found a solution that pinpoints and treats the underlying condition and are providing that solution for veterans across the nation, but we need your help. Go to waftbi.org to find out more. That's waftbi.org.
Find Lanterns Radio Network on Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, iTunes.
They can intercept this transmission at any time, so I'll be brief. The fight is here. The time is now. go behind enemy lines.
YouTube, and other social media by searching keyword Lanterns Buzz or Lanterns Radio Network.
You're listening to the number one source for political, pop culture, and sports talk on the radio. The Julio Rivera Show. Hashtag Conservarican. With no fuck left to give.
We are controlling transmission.
Ladies and gentlemen,
The Julio Rivera Show is on.
Well, since I had a scheduled guest who didn't call in, I'm going to do something that I'm probably going to make a regular part of the show going forward. Hate mail to Conservarican. And I'm just scrolling through here. I'm looking for somebody that's just particularly bad. Let me see here. Jordan Mulligan writes, "You fucking piece of shit. You supported Cruz. You said anyone who supported Trump, hypocrite." There's no word in between. Let me see. There's hypocrite. I don't know what this word is because it's really horribly misspelled. If I see you, I fuck you up, but it's F-U-K, you up. You never conservative, dirty spick. Okay. All right. Well, my answer to that is I thought conservatives were supposed to be the true party of equality, where we treat all of ourselves, we treat everybody the same. We believe in free speech, and free speech is not limited to just making stupid posts on Facebook or Twitter. It's free political speech and the right. Listen, I don't like Bernie Sanders. I don't like what he's about. I think he's personally, on a personal level, a scumbag. He's a guy that's lived off of the government his entire life. But you know what? He has the right to be. The problem is, and this is a point that I was making the other day when I was at the RNC, DNC kickoff thing. I was talking to someone. We don't win in D.C. because we don't win the argument at home. We don't win the argument in the street. We don't win it by the water cooler. We don't win it amongst our friends. We have to know the issues, express the issues, make our points, and turn people to our side. Because let's be honest, we were right for the taking. I mean, even if you're if you think that America's going in the wrong direction and you want a protest vote against Barack Obama, we should have had someone who was the polar opposite of Barack Obama, and we did. We had Senator Cruz there. There's no reason why he couldn't have been, the nominee. I mean, he had actually more actual Republican votes. I mean, we're beyond that. But the reason is that I don't think people are quite fighting hard enough. And we're a different country. I mean, the reason America's revolution was spawned by citizens who were fed up with what was going on, and they would discuss it, and they would organize, and they were willing to take up arms and willing to do whatever it took, even risking their own lives to affect that change. Nowadays, people are fed up, they whine about it a little bit, and then they go back to playing Pokemon or whatever the hell it is they do, watching TMZ, YouTubing, whatever nonsense. It's not important enough to people anymore. And I think that that's a serious issue. They don't teach civics. So if you don't know civics, you don't know when your constitutional rights are being infringed upon. You don't know when the government is grabbing with both hands against your liberty and breaking the law. I mean, we've suffered through the most lawless administration in the history of this country over the last 7.5 years. Absolutely no respect for the rule of law. You had the one opportunity to get the perfect guy in, you didn't. So now in protest, many people don't want to vote for Donald Trump. Oh, boo-hoo. You know what? Something I like about Donald Trump is, even though he's new to being a politician in a sense, and that's why you get some of the shakiness on this issue, shaky on that issue. It doesn't seem that, he's principled towards any ideology whatsoever. But from a marketing standpoint, if you're a businessman, as he is, you don't take sides. And that's actually one of he's probably running the most perfect campaign in that sense, is that he's not going to be pigeonholed into having to do anything. And that's where winning down ticket and staying unified as a party really matters. Because if all these people stay home, you're going to get down ticket Democrats. You're going to get the Senate's going to flip. And once the Senate flips, it's a wrap. With, all the precedent that's been set by Barack Obama ruling unilaterally, you're talking about somebody who sold access in Hillary Clinton. The Clinton Foundation was a slush fund selling access, endangering the United States of America. And make no mistake, she compromised us. She compromised us in a big way. I mean, I think it's the party itself. I mean, I think that obviously nothing would have gotten done if Barack Obama didn't actually sign off on it. Vote for Donald Trump. That's it. I mean, I can't say really anything beyond that, Especially since I don't have a guest, because he just, I got stiffed apparently, not important enough to get a phone call. No, actually, I hope he's okay, and we'd love to have him on another time to discuss politics. He's actually a notable political consultant, but he's not here, so we won't say his name. We will have, though, Allison Choi, the author of Bleeding Heart Conservatives, Why It's Good to Be Right. And actually, it sounds very interesting. So she's going to be here to discuss it. On the other side of the break, I'm going to make another point. I'm not exactly sure what point I'm going to be making because I didn't expect the show to go this way. But I'm sure it's going to be interesting. So don't go anywhere.
You're listening to the number one source for political, pop culture, and sports talk on the radio. The Julio Rivera Show. Hashtag Conservarican. With no fuck left to give.
I'm here with Adam Marr of Warrior Angels Foundation. And why don't you tell us about something that you got going on right now that's very special that people want to know about?
Yeah, man. Today is actually the opening ceremony for the Warrior Games. Andrew is competing in shot put and discus for the U.S. Special Operations Command Team, and he's going to be competing tomorrow. So in conjunction with that, we're doing a fundraiser right now. So if you go to our Facebook page, facebook.com/Warrior Angels Foundation, you'll see a video of him throwing the shot put at the top of the page. If you share that from now until the 21st, we're going to be giving away 3 grand prizes. You can go to our Facebook page, you can check out all the details, share for a chance to win, and then go and follow through on your commitment and pledge to Warrior Angels Foundation so we can help these veterans that have a need for treatment with traumatic brain injury.
And that's WAFTBI.org.
Politics got you down? Is your team in last place? Is your significant other sleeping with your neighbor? Well, cheer up. The Julio Rivera Show is on. Deal with your problems afterwards.
Okay, I got it. I found something to rant about for a few minutes until our next guest comes in. Screw you. If you want to question my principles and if you want to attack other Republicans who want to vote for Donald Trump. Who the hell do you think you are? Honestly, have you not been suffering with the rest of us under the Obama administration? How dare you cast stones at us as if you're perfect? There are so many, and I'm so sick of these self-righteous, selfish, really, because they don't want to do what's right here, because they want to, I guess, give off this perception. And I want to, and I'm just gonna name her by name, Brittany, who I was on today with on the hard line, personally going out of her way to troll my Facebook and get direct quotations. I don't run away from any of that. I hit Dr. Carson for supporting Trump when there was still, Cruz was still mathematically alive, and if Carson was a real conservative at that time, he would have backed Trump when it was still when he was still viable, right? I hit Trump from every angle and called him every freaking name. Did I mean it all? Mostly. And I had legitimate concerns. Comparing him to the candidate that I backed, who I'm just going to try not to speak about him that much, going forward until there's relevance to do so, because it's over. Don't sit there and tell me that somehow I sold out and you're somehow better than me because you're not going to vote for Donald Trump. You're an idiot if you do that. I don't even care anymore. I can lose every freaking listener. I don't ever have to go on TV again. I don't ever have to write another article again. I don't give a shit. I got into this to do what I thought was right. So I'm quarterbacking, on my social media presence as this is the right move. All right? You have to adjust. Okay? Santa Claus isn't coming down the fucking chimney the first Tuesday or second Tuesday of November. It's not going to happen that way. You have to live with Donald Trump. And the way to make it palatable is to support him, get him in there. But let's pressure him. Let's be vigilant. Let's keep an eye on D.C. And let's expose anything that's going on or that may be going on under his administration that we're not happy with. That's what being a citizen. That's your civic freaking duty. Nowadays, you're some type of whacked out activist if you do that. There was a time in America where that was the norm. Now you're the exception. Nonsense. Nonsense, nonsense. On the other side of the break, we will have the beautiful, talented Allison Choi to discuss her book. Don't go anywhere.
Find the Lanterns Radio Network on Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, iTunes.
They can intercept this transmission at any time, so I'll be brief. The fight is here. The time is now. Go behind enemy lines.
YouTube, and other social media by searching keyword Lanterns Buzz or Lanterns Radio Network.
Bam, 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 bam. I haven't actually ever listened to Gene's show. I've talked to Gene a million times, but I've never actually listened to his show. I know he's a funny guy, and I know he has an idea about politics. So you guys should probably check out Behind Enemy Lines Radio on Lanterns Radio Network, as our next guest is here. She has made contact with the show, and we're very excited to have Miss Allison Choi, everyone. How are you this evening?
I'm great, thanks, Julio. How are you?
I am good. I'm actually having a rough day. I've been this is day 11 of Julio on the Trump train, and I've been attacked left and right by people that don't like Donald Trump. And listen, I wasn't his biggest fan either, but apparently if you tell people you're going to vote for Donald Trump, all hell breaks loose. Now, you are the author of a wonderful book by the name of Bleeding Heart Conservatives, Why It's Good to Be Right. And you're the perfect person to discuss what's going on here. America's taken a hard left turn over the last 7.5 years, and really actually the last 9.5 years, I feel, ever since the Democrats took control of both chambers in 2006 and rendered George Bush a lame duck. Tell us a little bit about your book and some of your ideas of how, or why rather, it is good to be right.
Sure. I wrote this book just basically I was tired for the past many years. Frankly, when I really came into adulthood starting in college, of hearing that conservatives are racist, greedy, warmongering, homophobic, sexist, the list goes on and on. And, I'm not, we're not, and I wanted to write thoughtful responses as to why from a modest and compassionate perspective. So I've received a lot of great feedback so far, a lot of people in my network and friends of friends, and also, frankly, some reviews on Amazon just saying, like, hey, this is a really great way to break things down, that, political affiliation is more than just being cattle following the herd. It's about individual policies, and I want to be an individual thinker, and this book helps break it down on, where you land left or right. I don't follow Republican Party platform on every policy. However, net, I find myself right of center. I'm a conservative, and I want to explain why.
Okay. Now, very interesting here. I just wanted to delve back kind of into your personal history, right? So, because you're a conservative, you're a minority. You're the daughter of a Korean mother and a Jewish father, right?
Yes, that's right.
Okay. So, a lot of times people try to pigeonhole minorities into that. You're supposed to believe the social conservative, or the liberal platform on social issues and whatnot. But where do you stand on a lot of the phony social justice movements that we see going on here with, like, Black Lives Matter and things of that ilk right now? Do you think that minorities are treated unfairly in America today?
I mean, in some ways, yes, not the ways that Black Lives Matter attests to. Really, I think that minorities are pandered to in a way, that they are not. For instance, I'll just use one topic of the idea of immigration. The liberal accusation is that conservatives are anti-immigration. Well, no, actually, let's talk about this instead of just flat out lying that conservatives are anti-immigration. No, we're anti-illegal immigration. Like, if we want to talk about reforming the immigration issue, let's talk about that. How do we make things more efficient so that hardworking, law-abiding, good people from around the world can become documented immigrants and contribute to our society, the United States, which is a nation of immigrants. We're also a nation of law and order, which is something that I feel like conservatives hold near and dear to our hearts, is that we're about law and order. And it's, the idea that conservatives are just blanket anti-immigration is something that immigrant minorities will hear, and then they think, oh, okay, well, then I must be Democrat then. I'm not Republican. Well, no, it doesn't. That's those sort of lies that the left spews, I think, fogs what's really going on and doesn't give the conservative case really a chance to be heard.
Okay, I want to read something actually from your actual book, because this is something that I believe has affected in a negative way, popular opinion, and that's the left-leaning media. Now, you write in your book, media bias becomes evident when communication of fact, opinion, entertainment, and ideas blur to favor its messenger's overt or subliminal personal message. Conservatives' issue with mainstream media bias is not simply a trite complaint made by right-wing Fox-watching audience. Just as liberal audience is rightfully displeased by the reporting style of Fox News, a conservative audience is rightfully displeased by the reporting style of many other major media outlets. For example, the New York Times, the Huffington Post, MSNBC, to name a few. Of course, mainstream media is not necessarily so staunchly dichotomous, but the point is that contrary to what a neoconservative audience may assume, Fox's right-leaning posture does not imply that the mainstream posture is therefore neutral. We view the mainstream media stance as left-leaning, and for liberals to suggest otherwise is disingenuous. It is inherent that they would perceive left-leaning perspectives as accurate. Now, do you think that people are programmed by whatever media outlets it is that they may watch to believe that those are centrist views, and when they see something to the contrary, they see it as extreme?
In a way, yes, to lesser informed or lesser aware audiences. I would like to think that at least, I know my preconceived notions, my opinions and principles already instilled within me, and I would like to think that I can take a step back and see, like, okay, yes, I understand how Fox reports this same topic one way, whereas CNN and MSNBC reports the same news in a different way. But I think to someone who just kind of watches or reads the news and takes whatever they're being fed for granted, it's hard to see where the nuances are, with what leans left and right, and whatever they're already thinking. For instance, in terms of how where you stand on the Black Lives Matter movement. If you already have your preconceived idea of if there's institutional racism within the police force, how you receive news, if it agrees with you, what you already think, then you're going to assume that that's the centrist, that's the mainstream, obviously the correct view.
Yeah, well, I mean, I know myself, right, and I've become a hardcore conservative over about the last 5 years, mostly as a response to Barack Obama's policies. It basically started in 2009, little by little. I was going from, being more a moderate. I would say I was a moderate, somewhat of a centrist. I didn't think the country was in as bad a shape as, or I couldn't have predicted what would be to come. And I've moved over further to the right, I guess as a response to what the direction that the country was moving in. But as I've learned more, I realized that that's the correct way, I think, for the country to run. We should be more constructionist in the way that, we interpret what the federal government's role, at the very least, the federal government's role. Because I understand the states have to do what they have to do, but I believe that the concept of states has been marginalized as the federal government has consolidated more and more power, and it's done it at an alarming rate, during the Obama years. Now, where's your position on a convention of states, which, a lot of conservatives have talked about, to kind of marginalize the power of the centralized federal government?
Yeah, I think that it's critical and crucial, and also fundamental to our United States of America to maintain power away from the federal government and keep that in the states. For example, in terms of education, I think that's very important. That only local state governments know what is in the best interest for their communities. And I think that having a federal government that takes too much power away from the states is not efficient, but it's also it's unconstitutional in many ways. The Constitution lays out which powers are reserved for central federal government, and then the rest being for the state. And it's something that I think unites all conservatives, and I think part of the reason why I wrote this book, I think it also this idea would also be of interest to many apoliticals, independents, and some people who think they might be liberal because of a couple hot button social issues, but really when it comes down to it, limited government, especially federal government, is very important to America.
Are there any particular down ticket races that you're interested in, or any particular candidates that you're excited to vote for in November?
Local government?
Yeah, local government, or just your Senate races. I don't know if obviously your House seat is probably is up for grabs because they all are. But is there any particular candidates that you're excited by?
I'll tell you, I'm going to be a resident pretty soon, probably in Westchester, and there's a candidate running, Killian, and she's female, conservative. While it is not conservative to play the race or gender card, I am excited when I see a fellow female, a Republican, running for office, and she's just all about wanting to fix Albany and stop corruption, insane corruption that's going on in our state's government. So I'm very excited about that.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank you for for coming on. It was great to speak with you. I hope we can have you on again in the future, and you can give us a little bit of an update on your next book, which I'm sure when this one really gets going, you're gonna want to write another one and explain to people why I'm further right than I was on the first one. I mean, I don't know. you got. It's a progression, And it's funny, I feel that politics, people either move further right or to the left as a response, I think, to what's going on. Obviously, if everything is good and the status quo is fine, people tend to actually, maybe disassociate a little bit politically. But what I've learned now with the type of people that we're putting in D.C. is that you shouldn't be that way. That you should really always be vigilant and always pay attention to what every politician is doing. Watch every penny. And Jerome Huyler, who was on, shined the light on the fact that about 80% of the money that we spend is wasted. That's actually it's pretty eye-opening and pretty sobering, especially during an election year. And again, I want to thank you for being on. Please come back to the show. Where can people get you on social media or buy your book?
Yeah, absolutely. You can learn more at bleedingheartconservatives.com. I'm on Twitter at GoodToBeRight. There's also my Facebook page. And, looking forward to your feedback on my books on Amazon, Barnes & Noble. You can find me at local retailers. So, I'm just going to be focused on getting my message out, especially through November. Because like you, I wasn't on the Trump train to begin with. It's hard for me to be at the end of the day, unless something crazy happens, I will be voting for the Republican ticket. And I hope that other people join us.
Exactly, and it makes perfect sense. But right now I'm basically the human pincushion as I absorb attacks from all these holier than thous. They obviously live in glass houses. And they've never committed sin, and I guess I'm just getting pelted with stones at this point. But I want to thank you. You've been great, and God bless, and we hope to talk to you soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Take care.
All right, that was Allison Choi, the author of a wonderful book. And that book, again, if you want to go pick it up, is Bleeding Heart Conservatives, Why It's Good to Be Right. I am exasperated. I am physically, mentally, emotionally tired. I really, as I went to air today, didn't even want to do the show today. I mean, obviously, I have a commitment to do a show once a week, and I never, not show up to do something because I'm the type of person that I like to keep my commitments and whatnot. But it was just the level of abuse that I've never thought in a million years that I would see this from our side. I thought that, even when I attacked people, I attacked candidates. But when I spoke to people who were supporting a different candidate than I was, I wasn't really mean. I would be like, well, this is why I feel this way. This is why I feel this way. My comments, unless and obviously, I mean, if you went after me first, I will, I'll rake you over the coals. That's not a problem because, I can attack somebody verbally, just as nasty as you can attack me, and I'm not going to sit there and have make a big deal out of it. But when someone says, and somebody, again, and I'm just going to mention her again, Brittany, says that my values are fluid. That's not true. I take no pleasure in standing here and criticizing people who want to do the right thing. The right thing, listen, in 2012, the right thing was to vote for Mitt Romney. The right thing in the primary was to vote for Ron Paul or Rick Santorum or someone like that. You have to vote for the nominee. I'm sorry. Some people. One of my friends said, now you're on TV and you're talking about Trump. And I was like, well, yeah, that's what I'm going to do because, I want to help the nominee. I want to help the Republicans win because if the Republicans don't win, we're going to be screwed. And he said, well, maybe you shouldn't do it with such a smile on your face. And I thought about that and I was like, well, what does that exactly mean? He was like, well, because it makes it seem like you're happy about it and you were on board the entire time. And I'm like, well, the only thing I can do is have enthusiasm towards trying to spread the correct message. I don't care what anybody says. People can call me a sellout. People can say whatever. And I've been called worse than that over the last, couple of weeks. And, I've lost a lot of listeners. And I really don't care because, like I said, I'll get new listeners because people at the end of the day are going to say, you know what? Julio was right. We need to vote for Donald Trump. And you know what? You guys can freaking text me and message me your fucking apologies later. I'm not mad at you. I'm Julio Rivera. God bless America, and I'll catch you next week.